Hello, how are you? Okay, so we have Rich, Zach, me, and Dennis. So we do have a quorum of it. Okay, we're going to get started here at 7 o'clock. So welcome everyone to the new Paltz Planning Board for September 6, 2022. We have some administrative business, public comments. There are no public hearings, although it will be noted. We also have application reviews for 4 separate applications. So let's get right on to it. First thing is we did receive minutes from our project coordinator, and those were for the September 16th meeting. Did everyone get an opportunity to look at those minutes?
I did.
In the August 16th meeting?
September 16th, I'm sorry.
What do you mean?
Okay. I'm sorry, August 16th, you're right, I'm sorry. My apologies there.
And also the July 19th.
That's right, because we didn't have enough people for the July 19th meeting. So let's go ahead and look at the August 16th. Any questions on that? It does cover all the application reviews we had. It covers the public comments that were made. Any edits or changes that need to be made to that?
It looked good to me.
Okay. In that case, I will need, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the August 16th, 2022 meetings from the planning board meeting of that night.
So motion.
And a second, please.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. Okay, so now we are moving over to the July 19th meeting. Rich, Rachel, and Dennis were here. Zach was not. So we'll need to look at those. It covers different comments that were made, as well as the applications, the special use permit that occurred at that time, another special use permit that was reviewed as well. So are there any changes, edits that need to be made to this document?
No, I'll
Okay.
just recognize that they were updated from the first draft of them.
Yes. So understanding that, I need a motion to approve the minutes for July 19th.
So motion.
The second,
Second,
all in favor?
Aye.
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 So the
And
motion,
just for the record, John, sorry, I abstained from the August 16th. I was not present.
correct. Thank you.
Right.
Okay, so we will now move on to the public comments. Are there any people here that wish to speak to the public comments on any of the actions or anything regarding the activity of the board?
This is Kitty Brown. I don't know if you can see my raised
Yes,
hand.
we do see your hand.
Okay. Just basically saying that, as a resident of the town, and because the apartments project is physically in the town at this moment, I'm very grateful for you for wading through the scoping document. And I don't envy you, but thank you for taking a hard look at it, and we'll be following it. Thanks.
Thank you. And I believe I see hand, Jane.
Yes, hi, good evening. I didn't see the chat, so I had to raise my hand. First of all, I'm Jane Schanberg, and I live at 58 South Manheim here in the village. I'd first like to thank Chairman Litton and other members of this board for putting my neighbors and myself together with Keith Libolt to discuss our concerns here next door for the 54 South Mannheim project. We had an excellent meeting. They agreed to help out with car lights by installing a 5-foot high fence along the southern side of the parking lot and to do additional planting if it was needed afterwards. And we hope and trust that the plans have been adjusted to accommodate those two things. And we were very happy. And my neighbors and I were all very, very pleased to have had a chance to to talk to our new neighbors, the developers of the project. So thank you again, Mr. Litton. I'd like to make an additional comment on the special use permit that's going to be coming up tonight for the cannabis dispensary at 87 North Chestnut. And I see that my friend David Shepler is here. I'd like to refer specifically to page 5 of the attachment number 2 on the issue of number 2, the overflow parking. In this document, it says the overflow parking for the cannabis dispensary that's proposed, quote, will be accommodated at the Moriello pool parking lot, close quote. My first comment is it reads as if that's a foregone arrangement. And if that is an arrangement or has been, if there have been private discussions about it, I think that those should be aired. I would like to say, I think that the optics of this are really very, very poor and that it's a very, very poor idea. In the same way that having overflow parking for a bar or an adult store at the Moriello pool and park during daytime hours would be. I think it's also bad public policy and it sets a bad precedent that one resident or business could use public parking space that where others aren't allowed. It's really the same as residents like myself not being able to use or my guests not being able to use parking spaces at SUNY, which belong to someone else. The other thing is that these developers have means.
Otherwise, just press pound to continue.
A property across the street that would be
Please enter the
very
meeting
logical.
password followed by pound.
Logical for their parking overflow. And secondly, I just want to
You have not entered any numbers. You have not entered any numbers.
Somebody
Please
hates what
re-enter
I'm
the
saying.
meeting password followed by pound.
Could whoever,
Finally, I want to point out that the town and the village jointly.
You have not entered
This
any numbers.
pool and
Goodbye.
park. Okay, I think I've made my point, but there is joint ownership of the pool and park. So without the, I don't think that the town needs to be included in any kind of decision like this. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And just to quickly address the idea of using Moriello pool as an overflow has been noted, and the applicant has removed that from the conversation.
Excellent. Thank you. Very, very well done. I appreciate that.
Are there any other people who are here to speak generally on any actions of the board? Autumn, do you have anybody that's waiting?
there does not appear to be anybody in the waiting room.
I tried to be. It's Ed Burke.
Yes, Ed, go right ahead.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Is 42 South Chestnut on the docket for tonight?
137, no. 42 South Chestnut is not on the docket tonight, no.
Okay, I wasn't sure. That's why I was just checking in. I did speak with the applicant and the attorney, and I think they'll be getting back to you with some landscaping that we have agreed upon. Going to try and plant 3-foot tall bushes. That was our last correspondence, but the next meeting is in 2 weeks.
It is, and just so just to note, I did speak with the gentleman, the applicant, when I saw him in town, and we had a brief discussion, and he said he's going to try to take every measure he can to make it work, so.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Anyone else here to speak to any topic or application before the board? No? Okay. like to thank everyone who did speak tonight. We did appreciate it. So now, what we want to do is actually, we want to get any updates from the Village of New Paltz Board of Trustees, the Ulster County Planning Board, or the Environmental Planning Board. William Murray, are you here and present?
I am. Good evening, and thank you everyone for attending tonight's meeting. No real update from the village board, and our Ulster County Planning Board meets tomorrow, Wednesday. So I have no report from there. But, next meeting, I should have something for you guys.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm Melissa Cherubino, and when you had asked if there was anybody else who wanted to speak, for some reason my reception wasn't great.
Okay.
We are actually with Trail Links, if you remember us from last month.
Yes.
Has our application discussion passed?
No, your application is going to be here in just a few minutes.
Oh, great. Sorry. My apologies.
Quite all right. Okay, so that covers all of the public comments. There are no public hearings tonight on the application. And we will now move to the application reviews. The first application review is site plan PB 2211, 137 North Chestnut Street. The applicant is Trail Link. This is an application for a site plan and special use permit. So we have a few notes here. That we need to quickly go over. Actually, only one note really that we need to quickly go over. In looking at the application, the building inspector has detailed for us that he believes that we need to increase the escrow from $2,000 to a total of $10,000. So that would be an $8,000 increase on the escrow. Ashley, do we need to take a motion on that? Is that how we wish to approach this one?
Yes, you should do a motion on that. And I just want to make sure, because I think you have a full board and then an alternate present. So only 5 of you will be voting on the motion, because Raquel's been appointed again, correct?
Correct.
And welcome.
So this case, Dennis will be the alternate and will not need to vote on this particular issue. So I'd like to get a motion to increase the escrow for PB 2211, 137 Chestnut Street from $2,000 to $10,000.
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And so the escrow will be increased. Are there anything new that we need to be aware of regarding this application from the applicants?
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Justin Dace with Collier's Engineering and Design.
Yes, sir.
We had presented at the last meeting, and I know there was a couple board members that weren't present, and the thought was to come back tonight and I can run through the project again if you think that would be helpful. I'd be more than happy to do that.
I think that would be helpful. There were a couple of people who were not present at the time, so you can give us the brief review of it, and we can move from there.
Okay. Am I able to share my screen? I can pull up the plan, or what was your preference?
You should be able to share your screen, yes.
Everybody see that?
Yes.
So yes, TrailLink LLC is the applicant for the project. Scott Arnold, Justin Bowe, and Nick Warner are all on this call as well. So if any specific comments or questions come up for them, they are available. But the project is, it's located on 137 North Chestnut Street, New York State Route 32. It's the former Gateway site, if anybody recognizes that name. It's on the west side of 32, and it's between the car wash and Rycor. It's a 3-acre site. Just for orientation wise, the bottom here, this is Route 32, North Chestnut Street. The car wash would be to the right, and Rycor is on the left-hand side. And the project also fronts or has frontage on the Walker Valley Rail Trail in the back, or the west side of the site. So if you've been by the site recently, pretty much all the facilities that were previously developed on the site have been removed. There's a slab remaining, as well as the gravel parking areas that were utilized by the prior development. The site is 3 acres in size. It's in the town, I'm sorry, the village's NBR zone. And there's a couple drainage ways that kind of go along the frontages of 32, as well as the extent of the northern property line here, which discharge into the tributary 13, which is between the rail trail and the project site here. There are some wetlands associated with those facilities. There is an ecologist as part of the project team who's identified the extents of those wetlands, and would be working with our project team for any impacts to those, which I'll describe shortly. So what we have before the planning board, it's a mixed use development. This shaded area here is the building footprint. It's a 3-story facility. First floor. Okay. As I said, the first floor has a commercial office space on the frontage of 32, with a few residential units on the back side of the building here. And then stories 2 and 3 are all residential units. So there's about 12,900 square feet of office, and then we have 44 residential units, which are broken down into 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom. And let's see, we have 27 1-bedroom and 17 2-bedroom. So we're proposing, there is an existing access off of 32. We are proposing to relocate that to the north. So that would come in this area and gain access to our parking, which we've put behind the building. In addition, we have spaces identified for electrical vehicle with charging stations, as well as bicycle parking, bike racks located around the site, along with the frontage on 32 and a couple locations around the building. Being that we have frontage or access to the rail trail, we are proposing a trail link, hence the name of the developer's entity, via a pedestrian bridge across the tributary, and then a walking path to get over to the rail trail there. And we are looking to do, in kind with the NBR zoning district, we would be developing a streetscape with, right now we just have a sketch on here, some tree grates, so I have street trees, some benches, some additional landscape island areas, the bicycle parking or racks that I spoke about previously, to dress up our section here of fronting on 32. And we also have some proposed on-site, or I'm sorry, on-street parking along 32, which we'd be coordinating and having review with New York State DOT for those improvements. I mentioned regarding the wetlands, adjusting the location of the driveway access, we do have some disturbance to those wetlands for the access, and then we will have some disturbance of the wetlands for our pedestrian walkway to connect to the trail. It's a 0.03 acres is what we have estimated. 0.04, I'm sorry, acres is what we have estimated now. The ecologist believes these are Army Corps wetlands, so we would be looking to address that disturbance with a pre-construction notification for the wetland disturbance. We also have, with the tributary, there's a 30-foot stream buffer. So again, to accommodate our access over to the rail trail, we would encroach in that buffer, and that does require a special use permit through the board. Lastly, within the NBR district, we've identified our compliance with the bulk regulations, with the exception of the building height. Code calls for 3 stories, 35 foot as the max. We are at 3 stories, but 37 feet 4 inches. So we would require a variance, a 2 foot 4 inch variance for the building height for the project.
Excuse me, I'm late. I'm the former Village of New Paltz Environmental Conservation Commission chairperson. And I just wanted to give a brief public comment, if I may, at this time.
Actually, we're going to need to ask you to wait until this gentleman has made his presentation. Public comments are at a special time during the meeting. As well, public comments can be made by written comments, and then there will, of course, be a public hearing on this as it moves forward. So I'm going to have to ask you to wait at this time because we're past our public comment time and are moving on with application reviews.
Certainly. If you just allow me 20 seconds.
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to wrap up, we would look to propose new water and sewer services to the adjacent village facilities in 32, and stormwater improvements would be provided on site as well in accordance with DEC regulations and village regulations. That's a summary of the project.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the members of the board regarding this project? Any comments?
John, I
Yes.
just have one. When do you get through all the process? When did you think you might be able to start building? Did you hear that?
The question, when would we start construction? Is that it?
Yeah,
Well,
if we
yeah.
go through the whole process, you have any idea when you hopefully, let me put it this way, when would you like to start construction?
Dennis, we can probably get plans together, and if you folks are ready to sign them, we could probably get a building permit application to Corey tomorrow, but no, just joking around. I mean, realistically, this is Nick Werner speaking. We would like to start construction on this project hopefully in the spring.
Yeah.
I think that's realistic, assuming that, we comply with all the requests of the various boards and we meet all the timetables to do so. But that's, realistic for what I think we believe for our construction to begin.
Well, that's good. I mean, I've done projects and usually spring is the ground is thawed out and different things. But For my part, I've looked at it before. I've walked the property. I think it's a terrific improvement for that area. It's providing housing and office space that we desperately need. So I certainly would hope that we can do everything possible to get your shovel in the ground in the spring.
We appreciate that. If I could just touch real quickly on two other items that I know Justin knows about, and I just want to hit on. As follow-up from the last meeting, we also did reach out to the deputy mayor as a result of her blight with the housing situation, obviously in New Paltz, and we've expanded on the conversation with her in regards to the affordable component. So we've contacted her, and we're also in contact with Darren Scott at Homes and Community Renewal for New York State. So we're expanding that conversation, and we'll be following up with both of them. In addition, in regards to the comments that Rachel had regarding the beavers, I know Justin spoke with our environmental biologist person and was getting some further information on that. Justin, can you just touch on that briefly for us as well?
Yep. Yeah. Like Nick had mentioned, we pass it on to our the project ecologist. He's gonna take a look at that. He did walk the site previously when he was doing the wetlands and other potential habitat review. He didn't recall anything out there, but we'll provide you a formal response on that concern.
Thank you, Justin. In addition, just to Dennis's point about, kind of moving along, one thing that would be extremely helpful to us in order to kind of keep that momentum moving forward, we intend to have a full submission of the, I guess, a complete site plan to the board for its October meeting. And one request that we do have, if the board sees fit, is we were looking to possibly be referred to the ZBA if possible to discuss that height variance. We fully understand that we, cannot complete the ZBA review and approvals until the seeker is done. But if we could start that process as well, that would be helpful to us if the board so choose to refer us at this time.
We're going to actually wait until we have a site plan in front of us so that we can look at it and make the recommendation following that. That's just part of the procedure.
Okay.
One other item, Mr. Chairman, since the last meeting, we actually got some correspondence back from SHPO. We did receive a letter, and I'll provide it to the board, a letter of no impact to cultural resources. So I'll forward that over to the board for their file.
Thank you. Any further comments that are required or requested at this time by members of the board? No? Yes, go ahead, Rachel.
How much do you anticipate charging per month for the apartments?
Rachel, that's a great question. We have not settled on the total rent yet because we are still resolving on what the program will be that we're going to fund the project under. So that was part of our conversations that we had with HCR, Darren Scott, the representative from HCR. We are considering making this entirely an affordable deal, meaning that they would be subject to the guidelines of HCR. So once they release the new notice of funding, which we anticipate to come out within the next 3 to 4 weeks, we'll be able to answer that question probably at the October meeting of whether or not it will be a entirely affordable project or if it will be a mix of affordable and market rate.
Would you consider flying a balloon early so that people could see how tall it will be?
I'm sorry, repeat that, Rachel.
Would you consider flying a balloon early, putting up balloons that are the height of the building early so that people can see, you say you want to refer it to the ZBA to get a variance. I always find it helpful to be able to actually see when you walk by the property, how tall it's going to be, whether it's an issue or not.
We could discuss that and see if we could get something set up. We are talking, it's, like I mentioned, it's only 2 feet 4 inches above zoning. But we could discuss that and see if we can give you something to provide a reference. The architect actually for the project is also working on some renderings, which are we anticipate we'll have for the next submission as well. So I think that'll give the board a good idea of the scale of the project from a couple different viewpoints.
Justin, this is Dennis again. Do you think you could set up, well, as we get closer to it, after you do the site plan, could you set up a date where members of the planning board could do a site review? We could go over there and actually walk it like we did with David for Net Zero. And in fact, I think at that one, when we did that site review, he did have the balloons. So you're only going 2.5 feet or less above what's there already. So it's not a big deal, but it would be a good idea if we could have a date where we could come over and just walk the site.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we could propose some dates. Do you typically do that for like one meeting for all the board members, or is it split between 2 site meetings, just depending on
we generally don't do this, so it is kind of unusual. So having an afternoon when we might be able to go there and split so that we don't have a quorum of members at any one moment, we could take a look at that and do it on, say, Saturday morning in one group and then Saturday afternoon for another group, and that way we could knock it out, or divide it into the morning between 2 different times and knock it out. But we just have to be cognizant that we don't have a quorum there, so that we're not discussing business that the public does not get access to.
Understood.
Yeah, and as an alternative, if there were going to be a full board or a quorum, then it would be, the board wouldn't be, discussing. You could point things out and explain the site, but it really wouldn't be any discussions, as the chair indicated.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your submission here. Thank you for taking the time to come back and do a little review for some of the board members that missed the last one. And we will certainly look forward to seeing you in October.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that. Just two more points, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'll be very quick. One, I believe at the last meeting, the board declared intent to be lead agent. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Did that get circulated as far as?
So I did prepare the notice, and I'm going to be circulating it tomorrow. I was away for last week, so I was a little behind, but I do have the notice that'll go out tomorrow. And I might just shoot you an email to go over the agencies that are listed on there, just to make sure no one's missing, if that works.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you need additional copies of plans or EAFs or things?
I was just going to print out and print out 11 by 17, so I could do that all.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right, if you need anything, definitely just let me know.
Thank you.
And then, Mr. Chairman, with the referral to the ZBA, is there specific information on or specific information that the concept plan is lacking to make that referral, or what's?
Well, just part of the procedure that we have is that we do like to have the site plan in front of us so that can all be submitted over to the ZBA, so that they can also have a look at exactly what your plans are, rather than just make a general referral without any sort of documents to go over. So we like to wait until we have that in front of us before we make that referral, but it will be fairly quick and easy.
And I think you also, Justin, had mentioned that the architect was preparing some renderings. I think that would definitely be something that would be helpful for the board to have before making that referral as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that detail.
Okay. Well, again, thank you very much for taking the time. I look forward to the October submissions. And now we'll move forward. So the next item on the agenda is a site plan. It's a residential site plan, PB 2212, 6 Grove Street. We have a few issues that we need to go through, and then we can move on to the next steps. So because there are some technicalities here, I'm going to allow our attorney to discuss some of the issues before we move on to the next steps.
Sure. So this, let me just pull my notes. Okay, so they did update the plans. You may recall that there was some encroachments that were previously going to be removed from the adjacent property as a result of a subdivision that occurred a few years back. So now that has been added to the plan to go ahead and make those changes consistent with that prior approved plan. Just a couple notes I had in the bulk table, the discussion of lot coverage. There's a actual lot coverage of 15.5%, but that's inconsistent with the lot coverage calculation below the bulk table, which indicates that 25.1% is proposed. So if you could just make those two numbers, whichever is correct, make sure those are consistent. And it does appear that there would be a need for a side yard variance. So the building as it currently exists is pre-existing non-conforming within the side yard setback, but there is an addition proposed that's going to be increasing that non-conformity. So typically, and we could have the building inspector confirm, but that would require a area variance in order to add that addition also within the setback.
Hi, I'm Ryan with Alfondre Architecture. I'm working with Nick and Carolyn for this project. I know you've seen Robin before, so I was just subbing in for tonight for her. But I think, do you have the version that has the side steps on that? That's encroaching on the variance, because we've rotated the steps, so we shouldn't need a variance for that.
Was it the house itself, or was it the steps?
Yeah, I thought it was the actual house itself.
I thought the house was right on the edge.
I believe the line was the roof line that was indicated in the earlier drawing.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm looking at, I guess it would be the northern side.
Because I believe we tried to make sure that we were aligning with the current roof, the roof edge and the building edge, so that we wouldn't have to bother you guys with a variance.
And I think the issue is, though, that that's within the setback. I think you're showing a side yard setback over there of a little under 10 feet.
Okay.
So because you're following that, although the existing structure is able to stay in the setback because it's before the zoning had changed, this addition, because you're adding that also within that setback area, it would be.
Okay, even though we're maintaining the existing line, the new addition needs to have that variance. Okay, then we'll make sure that we check that box for you.
And that was, I believe that was it for.
Yeah, those were the 3 points on that you had noted earlier.
Okay.
John, can I just clarify? Does that mean we'll be getting another plan that will no longer encroach to the 12.6 setback, or will we be making a referral?
I guess that's a question, Mr. Alfondre. Are you going to be able? I mean, Ryan, are you going to be able to provide us with new drawings that will indicate eliminating that, or do you? Is this something that we're just going to need to go ahead and refer to the ZBA?
That's a great question. I will. I'll have to get back to you on that one, because I thought that we were all set with that side variance. So I'll double check that. Is that something that you need me to get a plan back to you guys, or?
Well, the choice that you're presented with is either we refer it to the ZBA for a variance, or you provide, for lack of a better word, a clean plan that does not require the variance because it's not within the setback.
Gotcha. Okay. So we'll probably have to go through the ZBA then to get that taken care of.
Okay. To our attorney, then, do we want to go ahead and make the referral to the ZBA based upon having the plans that he submitted?
I was just going to suggest that
Okay.
to keep things moving.
Okay. So with that in mind, I would like to get a motion to refer this application to the ZBA for a setback, a side yard variance.
No motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
And again, if we haven't, I'm sorry, but I think Dennis, if you're serving as an alternate,
All right, sorry about
I'm
that.
sorry.
That's okay.
So perhaps if someone else can make the motion and you could redo the second and then.
All right. So like to get a motion to refer PB 2212 to the ZBA for a side yard variance.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So we have made the referral here, and just let me make a note. So we have now made the referral to the ZBA, who will take this up. Just check with our project coordinator to make sure you have all the documents and the timeliness of it, so it can all go all smoothly.
Okay.
So moving on, the next thing that we also need to do is to have Corey, we're gonna have to ask Corey to perform a zoning review. Actually, we have covered the area variance, but we will need to get him to a zoning review. Would like to refer this to the Ulster County Planning Board, so we'll need a motion for that in just a moment. Since new parking spaces are proposed to bring the property into compliance with the previously approved subdivision code. So would like to go ahead and get a motion to refer this to the Ulster County Planning Board.
So moved.
Second,
Seconded.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so again, if you'll work with our project coordinator to get that taken care of and sent to the Ulster County Planning Board, so we can get that back on a timely basis and keep this moving forward. Looks like we have covered all the issues. So the next thing we'll do is wait to hear what happens at the ZBA, and then we will be setting a public hearing and moving forward.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So that leads us to the next special use permit, PB 2208, 87 North Chestnut Street. This is the dispensary that would be in the Euro Place building. Unfortunately, what we would need to do is review the traffic management plan from our consultant. However, our consultant has not provided us with one. So we do not have a traffic management plan to review. Let's see here. It's exempt from a referral to Ulster County Planning Board. Our attorney, we spoke a bit about referring it to the Ulster County Planning Board, is that correct?
Yes, so there's an exemption there's an exemption if certain criteria are met because it's the reuse or reoccupancy of an existing structure. But one of those criteria is that an increase in parking isn't required by local statute. So the way your parking requirements for non-residential uses in the village work is that the planning board sets those criteria. So I don't know whether you're, prepared to determine whether or not that criteria has been met yet, or you can refer it to the Ulster County Planning Board, even if it's not a mandatory referral, for a discretionary one to cover all your bases if you prefer.
I do want to make sure that we do this properly and that we have covered our bases. So I would like to go ahead and get a motion then to refer this to the Ulster County Planning Board for review.
Can I, before you vote on that, John, can we discuss this?
Sure. Let's hear what you have, David.
Can you explain? I'm not following why you're considering sending this to the planning board. Can you explain that?
Yeah, David, if it's okay, I was going to ask the question as a board discussion, so maybe we'll answer it in the context of that, and then I'll invite you to speak. So my understanding was that at this time, especially since the applicant had removed the explanation of using the Moriello pool parking facilities for overflow parking, that we were not going to have, we did not make any decisions, at least till now, about the need for additional parking to accommodate the retail use. So it might, John, be that you're thinking to refer it just so we have it as a referral completed in the event that something changes that with the traffic plan. And
Right.
if that's the case, then that would probably be prudent, because it would kind of like keep things overlapped moving. But if so, I just wanted to get clarity on what we were proposing and why we were proposing to refer.
So my thought, and from speaking with our attorney, is that because we do not have information back completely from our consultant, and because we have eliminated the use of Moriello Pool as a backup parking area, that there may be a need for a review by the Ulster County Planning Board, because there will be an increase in parking spaces. If we do it now and we don't need it, then we can move forward without getting it. However, if we do not make the referral now and we determine 2 weeks later that we need it, then that would prevent the applicant from moving forward in the process. It would kind of delay that forward movement. So to cover our bases, just in case we would need it, I thought it would be prudent to go ahead and make the referral. If we don't need it, and our attorney can certainly correct me, if we don't need it, then we can just continue to move forward without having to wait on that if we once determine that we don't need it. However, if we do, then that would be time lost for the applicant.
That's super helpful. Thanks, John.
So could perhaps we discuss, consider that motion at the end of our discussion here?
Sure.
Yeah, because I mean, the whole point is, as I mentioned in my memo, this concept of Moriello pool parking was completely a contingency upon a contingency. We made, I think, pretty clear arguments in our memo for why we don't need extra parking. This was just to give you extra assurance, from this kind of notion of, oh my gosh, maybe people will show up without appointments and they'll wander the streets aimlessly, or want to pull over somewhere and try to get an appointment, and all these kind of hypotheticals. But what's clear, if you talk to people like Phil Greeley here, is that appointment-based systems are used all over the place to manage surges. And I think we're making a pretty clear argument that we don't need to consider additional parking. We're equipping the building inspector so that he'll work alongside the data with us to receive weekly reports and to begin to consider when we can start to release appointment hours, and ultimately when we can release the whole system from this appointment-based system. So there's lots of checks in here, and we don't even need to talk about this notion of overflow parking.
So you said you're going to collect data for how many days or how many weeks?
So let me take you through the concept. There are 3 periods that we laid out here. We talked about this. We talked about the initial period for 2 weeks, a partial monitoring period that would kick into effect some no earlier than 2 weeks later, and possibly further, depending upon the circumstances. And then a so-called verification monitoring period, which is the verification monitoring period begins. Let me share my screen so you guys can see this table as I'm talking through this. So the initial monitoring period is a minimum of 2 weeks. We exit out of that when we can show that there are periods of time, at a minimum, there are periods of time when appointments are no longer necessary, right? We're not exactly sure what that looks like, but it could be something along the effect of, geez, for 2 straight weeks, we only had one person, at a certain hour claiming an appointment, for example, right? And at that point, the building inspector would approve, okay, during the following hours in the day, I'm going to release those hours from the appointment-based system. If after 2 weeks, we can release all of the hours, that's even great. We can skip partial monitoring and go straight to verification monitoring. But let's talk about the second concept before we jump to that. The partial monitoring would be, again, I gave you a scenario of how some of the hours would be released. And during that period of time, we would continue to provide these reports. We would provide all traffic counts across all hours that remain in the appointment-based system. And we would track one complete week, the one weekday a week that has the highest amount of traffic associated with this use, and every Saturday for the period of the partial monitoring. At some point, the data will show that the amount of demand has fallen below a need for any of this appointments. And at that point, we would move into this last phase, verification monitoring. For 30 days after that period is entered, we would continue to monitor the highest traffic weekday each week and the Saturdays, and present that data on a weekly basis to the building inspector, so that Corey can be sure that the traffic is being managed appropriately. Did that make sense?
Yes.
Here's what the report looks like, right? We would track it in this way. We would track the parking counts across all uses, the vehicles that we've turned away during the appointment hours, the number of appointments that we've kept, and the number of customers served in each appointment period.
Comments from the members of the board?
I mean, it seems incredibly thorough to me, and I understand what you were trying to, or what you were saying, John, about submitting this or referring it as a precaution should it need to be, but I feel somewhat confident that I don't think that that's going to be the case. And if the applicant is willing to, I guess, take that 2-week pushback if it is required, I'm okay with not referring it at this time to the Worcester County Planning Board.
Okay. Other members of the board?
Yeah, I agree with Raquel, actually. I'm not sure that I can see a scenario when we're going to need to require additional parking spaces.
Okay.
I'm not sure where they would put them anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's kind of the, I guess that's part of the point, is if they do need them, then exactly where would they acquire them? Rachel, I'm sorry, Rachel.
I'm fine either way. It doesn't seem like a big deal because he's monitoring everything so closely. I mean, what would the contingency be? I mean, he mentioned a bunch of different scenarios the last time that I thought seemed pretty adequate. I mean, if you actually had people there that were showing up without an appointment, and you had enough people there for appointments, they could simply be told they had to make an appointment. It seems like
they have their control over the number of people that are going in and out of there. So if they're controlling the traffic, then they're controlling the parking.
Finally, Rich, comment?
I had one practical question for Autumn. Do we have that memo dated? I have a memo regarding traffic that was dated August 16. But it looks like that memo that includes the analysis and the framework for that analysis is newer than that. I'm not sure I have it. In other words, what David just pulled up.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. I believe it's in the folder. I'm not sure if you got it via email or not. There were a few threads.
You could just confirm it's in the folder. I can just
Yeah.
give it a more thorough review because I don't think it's there.
It's dated August 27th, Rich, just
Thank you.
when you do find it.
Thank you.
And then the other point to make, just as we're sort of continuing down the path here, that there's still some material and memos that reference it as a 4,000 square foot retail dispensary, and then other references to it being a 2,000 foot. And I know exactly why that is the case. Those discrepancies happen. I remember being explained from the plan, from the Zero Place plan. But I just wanted to, I think, either encourage or maybe require that we start narrowing down on what that final proposed size is for the use.
Yep. Yes, I've stated I've stated absolutely that it is a 4,000 square foot use. Just forget the number 2,000. It no longer exists. And all my memos, I think, clearly state that, Rich.
Okay. Well, something I just read today didn't, so that's good. That's clarification. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. So in terms of the referral, Rich, what are your thoughts?
I think it was that we had an open discussion about it. And the applicant is, doesn't think it's a necessary idea. Then that would be lost time if it were needed. And I wouldn't say it's necessary now.
Okay, Dennis, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with the others. I think David has done a very thorough job. I'm totally in agreement with just letting it go, as Rich said.
Okay. All right, so we won't make a referral at this time, and we'll just kind of move forward to see what we get back from our applicant. I mean, our consultant. So really, we're kind of at a stopping point because we're going to state that we do not believe that there's an increase in parking spaces that will be required. It also meets the other two points, that conditions that need to be met so that there would be no referral. So really what we're going to have to wait for then is we're going to need to get the information back from our consultant, and I will make a note here, have made a note that we're going to reach out to him tomorrow to make sure that we get that information back from him on a timely basis so we can move forward. Actually, is there, our attorney, is there anything else that we need to review or discuss or that we need to keep in mind?
So this application will need a public hearing.
Okay.
So whether you wanted to discuss that, I know you're waiting on comments from your traffic consultant, but whether you think the traffic parking plan's been developed to a point where you think it would be ready for a hearing. We schedule it for not necessarily the next one if you want to hear from your traffic consultant first.
Well, it appears that most members of the board feel pretty confident in the data that he has supplied and the plan that he has created. So I think it would probably be a good idea to schedule it not for our next meeting, which would be on the 20th, but to schedule a public hearing possibly for October 4th. So that would give us time to review anything, and should there be any issues, that we can certainly address them at the time. So I'd like to get a motion then, please, to schedule a public hearing for October 4th.
So motioned.
And second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we do have the public hearing then scheduled for October 4th. David, to reach out to our project coordinator, take care of all the details so that we can get everyone properly notified. And then we'll have the public hearing on October 4th. At our next meeting, hopefully we will have information back from our consultant. I will certainly reach out to him tomorrow to try to get that to us as quickly as possible so we can keep plotting forward.
Great, thank you. And Jane, if you can hear me, give me a call if you have any other concerns. I'd be happy to chat with you about them. Okay.
Thanks, David. No, I don't.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Very good. Thank you. So we are now at the part where we are going to be discussing the new Paltz apartments. This is listed as PB 21AX. Raquel, you may need to get a little information to bring you up to speed about it, although we have received some information back from the applicant and regarding the DEIS. But what we want to do is to get our attorney tonight to go over the process of what we'll be going through. But first, I want to ask, did everyone pick up their material from the village office?
Yes.
Okay. It's yeah, I know, 3 volumes. It's a lot of stuff. Plus we have our own scoping document, which we developed a year ago, as a matter of fact. Back in September of last year, we began working on this to develop the scoping document. And they've taken the time to go through the scoping document and to produce a draft environmental impact statement. And Raquel, if you need some background on it, feel free to contact me. You can also contact Ashley if you would like to get a little.
Yeah, I was on the board when they first came to us,
Got it.
so I do remember. Yeah.
Got it. That's right. Okay, good deal. So then you're all up to speed. So we're going to let our attorney take over for a few moments and talk about the process that we're going to be going through. And then that will set us up for a discussion that will begin after. Well, hopefully we will be able to begin that in October, so that we can give ourselves time to go through this and read it and get all the information. Then we can start our discussions in October with the applicant. So for our attorney, please go right ahead. You have the floor.
Sure. So you received the DEIS or draft DEIS from the applicant for New Paltz Apartments. As you had noted, you had adopted a scoping document for this project around a year ago. So where you are in the process now as the lead agency, you have to determine whether or not the DEIS is adequate for public review. And basically what that means is whether it addresses all of the requirements of that adopted scoping document, and as well as certain other items that the SEQA regulations require it to address. You do have time frames to make this determination. It's 45 days from receipt of the DEIS. I calculated that to be October 1st. I did reach out to the applicant's attorney, though, because the way your meeting schedule falls, you have a meeting on October 4th. So I did ask, and they did agree to extend your time for making that determination until that October 4th meeting. So in the interim, the DEIS is, in addition to being sent to all of you, your consultants have it as well. So I know myself and you have various consultants for this project on traffic and ecological, other elements. So typically what would happen is your consultants will go through and review the DEIS compared to the scope just for this initial standard of whether it's adequate for public review, whether it hit everything, whether there's anything missing that was required to be there in the scope that wasn't addressed in the DEIS. It's not whether the ultimate determination is not whether you, as the board, agree with the study or think enough study's been done. It's just whether they've done what they were asked to do, pretty much. So myself, and I believe your other consultants, will give you comments on this completeness standard, as it's sometimes referred to, on whether or not, we think there's items that are missing that need to be added before it could be put out to the public for review, and then to have that more substantive type of review and analysis. And of course, the board, any comments you have under this adequate for public review standard, you would have an opportunity to address those too. And the applicant would be made aware of any items that you're requiring be added before it's going to be released, made available for public comment.
So that's the that's the quick and easy explanation. So please understand that does not relieve us of our duties to actually do the comparison ourselves. The data on the traffic is mind-numbing. There's just a lot of data there that I cannot go through and understand completely. So of course we're going to rely on our consultants for that. However, you can look at the DEIS and you can compare it to the scoping document to get an idea if each of those items was addressed, and then we'll let our consultants give us an idea of how well they were addressed. Any questions? I'm sure you all have some questions about that. I believe one question was, when would we be able to allow the public to see the DEIS? And I think that please correct me if I'm wrong, that the DEIS cannot be circulated until we agree that it is adequate for public review. Is that correct?
Yes, so that's how, and it benefits the board, the public, and the whole process to do it this way, so that there's not, different versions, that until the board says, yes, it's adequate, it's ready for public review, you don't have, different versions that are not adequate floating around, and everyone, when it's time to have a public hearing or public comments on the DEIS, everyone's looking at the same document that's already been confirmed to be adequate by this board.
And so does that mean that we cannot discuss specific things that are in this right now, like at this meeting? Do we have to go into executive session or something?
No, I mean, ultimately you'll hear, we'll discuss the adequate for public review standard during an open meeting. I don't know if there's a substantive, question that you have about the document. You could certainly discuss that. I just don't know.
Okay, so it's okay
far
to
that
bring
goes.
up specific things that are in the DEIS and talk about them in an open meeting.
Yes, as part of agreeing, as part of determining it's adequate for public review standard. Yes. And then
Exactly.
once,
I think that's the key point, is that we don't want to first hit this standard and determine it's adequate before really diving into the meat of it and any more substantive types of comments. That way, those discussions are had when it's been made available and everyone knows what we're talking about.
is that clear to you? You still look like it may not be clear.
No, I think I understand. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions. So I feel like, so does this mean that this October 4th meeting, at that meeting, we're going to decide, we're going to vote on whether we think that it is adequate? I mean, it says that it's in scope and content that we have to say that it's adequate. Those are the words. Those are the words in the scoping document. Those are the words that seeker uses. And so my question is, so on October 4th, we are going to make that decision. And then if we decide it's not, then we send it back to the next step, which would be for them to address the inadequacies of the DEIS.
Yes, that's correct.
We have 30 days from after they address those to determine again whether or not it's adequate.
Yes, so if there's specific items that are identified, say, just for example, there was supposed to be a traffic study that addressed 3 intersections and they only did 2, something like that, where you would spell out, whatever it is that was not done and that was supposed to be done by the scope. They get notified of that and then would make a resubmission, and then you would see whether or not they cured that deficiency.
So
And you
because
have 30 days to do that.
I guess I'm asking because I have started to look at it, but it is pretty daunting. And I've noticed a few things that I want to ask for. I've noticed a few things that were missing. And so do I wait and present all of them on October 4th? Do I have more time to find more to look at it further? Or should I list some of those now so that the applicant can begin working on them?
I think it would probably be helpful. I think maybe it was Rich, one of the board members, I think had asked about preparing written comments as a board member because they weren't going to be present. I think that's something that'll be helpful if you if you could perhaps start maybe making, any comments that you have on the adequacy, Rachel, and have that in a comprehensive list. That way it could all be shared with the applicant.
Okay.
So you make that determination as a board, whether to require or that certain things are missing.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't be doing any changes in the interim.
Okay. No. Oh, so let me know when you want me to list them, what I found so far, and I'll do it.
I would go ahead and make the list and have it ready for our discussions with our consultants at our next meeting.
Oh, okay. So you don't want me to do it now. That's what I was asking. Okay.
Right.
All right.
I was hoping to get a little more clarity about the completeness standard and the adequacy. You used a good example, Ashley, when you shared, if we were asking for X intersections to be evaluated and they evaluated, 3 of the 4, is that the level? I mean, that example is a good one. There's a lot of roads that require description, leaf on, leaf off. I think there's some things. So is that the level of detail with which we should opine on the completeness, and whether what they've done in terms of, well, first of all, so we're looking at that as a level of completeness standard. That's not an evaluation of the application at this time.
That's correct. It's more about whether, so it's not whether you, and often what will happen is after it's, you make this completeness determination between then and the time that what is prepared, that's known as the FEIS, there usually is supplemental studies or analyses that are required because of things that come up as far as the substance of what was done. But this is more whether it's addressed everything that was asked of them, not so much the adequacy of the study itself, whether or not there was a study, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
I have another question. So we're not allowed to share the actual DEIS, but what about all the stuff the applicant submitted earlier that was public, the maps that show the site plan and everything that he submitted earlier? We can show them that. We can talk about that.
well, you shouldn't be talking about, as a board member, you talk about it at the meetings and the board as a whole. So board members shouldn't be discussing with, applicants on the side or with, members of the public. Everything really needs to be done at an open meeting, but that stuff, I believe, is still available it should be available on the website. So if someone had asked about that, for example, I would just direct them to Autumn and she could help guide them where they could locate those documents.
Okay. So, okay.
All right, anything else?
Obviously, our consultants are all aware of the timeline, so we just are going to wait to hear back from them.
The consultants are aware of the timelines. They are also aware that we have asked for an extension of the timeline. Again, I'm going to be reaching out to all of our consultants tomorrow to tell them we need to get some information back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, if the consultants can give their comments before that October 4th meeting, and then also I think it'd be helpful for them to attend in the event they had some comments that might require changes. That way there could be a discussion, and if there's any questions from the applicant based on what the consultant comments are, that could all be hammered out during the meeting.
And would I be correct to assume that the consultant reviews are done by specialty area as well? So the traffic consultants are reviewing the traffic content within the DEIS?
Yes.
And et cetera? Yeah, okay.
I'm confused. So we have, their consultants, the consultants that they pay, that the developer paid, those, they're the ones who contributed the portions of the DEIS. And so now then we have our consultants that are working for the village that are looking at that now. And we're waiting for reports from them on each section of this. Is that my understanding of what's going on? Correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we'll be getting these one by one, or have they been put up somewhere and we haven't seen them, or I haven't seen them?
Yeah, I don't think any of your consultants have had an opportunity to submit anything yet, but they do have the document, and we'll be doing that before you're going to be discussing it at the October meeting.
So I've made numerous requests to be on the site visit for the wetland delineation. That's what I'm very interested in. And so I just want to make sure that our consultant is going to walk the property as well and check their maps. And I would really like to be there to be able to ask questions. So if I could just be notified when that is, I would really appreciate it.
I think that's perfectly fine. When we get to that point, we'll be able to do that.
And I haven't gotten to that part, but I would think that the wetlands have been delineated already. And I don't know, Rachel, if you'd had a chance to look at that portion of the document yet or not, but I'd think that it would have been.
I did, and I disagree with it a little bit. So that's why I was very interested in hearing a second opinion.
And your wetlands consultant will, you could certainly discuss that with them.
Okay.
We'll make sure that they're all aware to attend the October meeting.
Okay, so I would only, so are you saying that we won't be getting some of the consultants' reports until the October meeting?
I'm
hoping to get them long before then.
That's what I'm hoping.
I can't speak for, I know they'll, we're asking that they be before that meeting. So it really, it's going to be some point before that. I can't speak to those other persons.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to people tomorrow by email, and then I'll get with them, and well, tomorrow's Wednesday, and then on Friday, I think I'll probably get on the phone and make some phone calls to tell the consultants that we need to get that information back, but this is a lot of heavy lifting that we have to do. And so we need to get it back sooner rather than later so that our board has time to review particular areas of interest and to delve into it in general. So every effort will be made to get that stuff to you as quickly as possible.
Thank you for that, John. And just thinking ahead, because, you know, obviously the even heavier lifting will be when we're in review of all the details. Once the complete for public review document is prepared and submitted, is the review stage after that also time bound, or is it just a review that extends till completion by the board?
So after it's determined to be adequate for the public, you do have to afford a public comment period. Typically that would be done by public hearing, and that's supposed to be held between 15 and 60 days after it's determined that the DEIS is complete. So you have that public hearing, and it depends, you know, whether it's one night, whether it extends over, that's all a more fluid process, but you have a timeline in the sense of you're supposed to do it within that 60 days of determining it's complete.
And we can hold the public hearing open from week to week until we feel that everyone has had the opportunity to be heard. It's not something that everyone's gonna have to show up on one night. It's something that we can do over a period of time.
So that's a timeline by which we have to open the public hearing. I'm asking, is the review by the board of the entire submission also time bound after the final EIS is submitted?
So you would give any comments just as the public will be giving their comments, and the applicant will have to respond to those in the final EIS. Any comments of the board too are going to be made on the document itself. The DEIS would be made during this public comment period and then have to be addressed in the FEIS. But the only real timeline is for opening up that public hearing within the 15 to 60 days, and then any comments, you know, you would be making will be by the completion of that public comment period.
Thanks.
And it's kind of a unique situation because, as you know, the property is still located in the town. So it's normally you would have a true, you know, site plan application before you. Here, they need site plan approval from this board, but the property is still not, currently it's still located in the town. So that's the annexation will be, you know, that first step. And then the actual site plan review will come later on after, if the land is brought into the village. So there's kind of a multi-layered, I guess, approach here where you're doing the environmental review, then it would bounce essentially to the town and then bounce back for site plan review.
Any more questions?
No.
Okay, so we kind of have our tasks. My task tomorrow is to start getting information back from these consultants so that we can start to move on it. And then if you would start, please, reading through the DEIS and comparing it to the scoping document, that would be very helpful. As was stated earlier, make some notes, some written comments, and that way we can have them ready when we meet on October 6th and start working our way through this. Okay. All right. So with that in mind, we are at the end of our meeting for this time. So the next thing I do need is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank thank you all very much for your work tonight, and thank you all for the work you're going to have to do to get ready for the new Paltz apartments. I do appreciate it. It's a lot of work. So, good night, everybody.
Good
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Autumn, can you give me a? Are you still on, Autumn?
I'm still on. Give me a moment to stop the live
right.
stream. Thank you.
Okay.